Mr. Dean watched from the head of the table, pride shining in his eyes. When the meeting adjourned, he walked her to the elevator. "I think you're going to do great things," he said. "Keep me posted." Back in her apartment, Ava called her mother and told her every detail. Her mother squealed with delight, telling her she'd cook her favorite dinner, spaghetti with meatballs, when she got home. Ava smiled. Nothing felt too hard anymore. Each challenge, loneliness, exhaustion, occasional ridicule, felt manageable because she had a support system and a purpose. Meanwhile, Madison decided she needed to atone. She arranged a meeting with the cafe manager whose lobby she'd driven through that fateful morning. The manager, a gentlewoman named Rosa Martinez, showed Madison security footage of the incident and detailed the humiliation Ava faced. Rosa explained that when Ava returned to work, many of the cafe's regulars refused to sit near her, as if the mud stain on her uniform had made her dirty. The story lingered that way for days. She was embarrassed, Rosa said softly. She didn't want to come back, but she did. Madison felt her throat tight. She reached for her phone. "I want to apologize to her. I'll cover any costs for cleaning her uniform and make a donation to the cafe to hire more staff so customers aren't uncomfortable." Rosa nodded. "Ava's scholarship is enough," she said quietly. But she didn't expect kindness either. Madison left her card with Rosa and said she'd like an introduction to Ava. Rosa promised to pass along the message. That night, Madison struggled. She drafted and deleted apology letters in her mind, rehearsed what to say, and wondered if Ava would even accept. She realized that money couldn't buy forgiveness, but she still wanted to try. She wrote a note. "I'm truly sorry for what happened. I hope you can accept this gift to cover any damages and allow you and your family to enjoy a dinner at this cafe." She signed it Madison Grant and asked Rosa to deliver it along with a check. Ava received the envelope early the next day while cleaning tables at the cafe. She recognized the name but hesitated before opening it. Inside was the note and a check worth several $100s. She stared at it, conflicting emotions swirling: anger, gratitude, uncertainty. Her mother urged her to spend the money on replacing her old shoes or to save it for her books. Ava folded the note and tucked it into her bag, planning to think about it later. The scholarship continued to transform Ava's life. She excelled academically, making the dean's list each semester. She found purpose in volunteering at the women's shelter and tutoring high school students. At night, she studied until her eyes ached, then collapsed into bed, often exhausted but fulfilled. Kyle's grades improved too. He was inspired by his sister's ambitions and started working harder in school. Their mother got a second job, cleaning offices during the day, but the burden felt lighter now. Months passed. One crisp autumn morning, as leaves started turning gold, Ava sat in her sociology class listening to a lecture on systemic inequality. She raised her hand and spoke about her experience working at the cafe, how one moment of privilege had impacted her life in so many ways. The professor nodded and noted her insight. After class, the professor invited her to apply for a research assistant position studying urban poverty. Ava's heart raced. This was exactly what she wanted, to use her education to make a real difference. She applied, and a week later, she was accepted. Around the same time, Madison's life shifted too. Her father, Charles Grant, faced scrutiny at Devereaux Family Holdings when an environmental report revealed that one of their properties on Chicago's South Side was contaminating groundwater. Community members protested, and the media linked him to greed and negligence. Madison watched the press coverage with dismay. The story painted the Grant family as callous. His company's stock tumbled. Charles held an emergency board meeting and ordered Madison to salvage their image or find a new career path. Madison realized that genuine empathy mattered more than spin. She remembered Ava's grace and Mr. Dean's lessons about leadership rooted in compassion. Late that night, she drafted a public apology letter. "To the residents of the South Side, I extend my sincerest apologies for the harm caused by my family's company. We pledge to remediate the contamination, fund healthcare clinics, and provide scholarships for local youth. We cannot undo the past, but we wish to build a future together. She sent it to local news outlets and posted it to her social media. The response was mixed. Some called it a PR stunt. Others acknowledged the apology and the promised action as a step forward. Meanwhile, Ava's workload increased. She juggled classes, research, volunteer work, and her part-time cleaning shift. At the cafe on weekends, she loved her research position because it gave her a platform to advocate for communities like hers. One afternoon, she was analyzing survey data on housing insecurity in Chicago and noticed alarming rates of eviction in lower-income neighborhoods. She drafted a report and shared it with her professor, who encouraged her to present it at a community town hall meeting. Ava hesitated. Public speaking terrified her, but she knew it was important. She spent nights preparing, practicing her speech in front of a mirror, calming her nerves with deep breaths. On the evening of the town hall, she entered a crowded community center filled with residents, local council members, and reporters. Her heart pounded as she stepped to the podium. She began with her own story, how she grew up in subsidized housing, how her family struggled, how small acts of kindness had changed her path. Then she presented data, eviction rates, rising costs, and the long-term effects on children's education and health. She proposed solutions: stronger tenant protections, affordable housing initiatives, and community-based support networks. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. People lined up to talk to her afterwards, share their stories, thank her, offer their support. She felt powerful in a way she'd never imagined. Months later, it was winter, and Chicago was buried under a blanket of snow. The Dean Foundation held its annual gala at the Art Institute. Ava arrived in a simple but elegant dress, a far cry from the satin gowns she'd once thought she could never wear. Mr. Dean greeted her with a warm hug. "You've done remarkable things," he said. "I couldn't be prouder." As she mingled with other attendees, donors, activists, and educators, she spotted Madison standing alone by a sculpture, glass of champagne in hand, clearly uneasy. Madison caught her eye and approached. Ava's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't sure what to expect. Madison extended her hand. "Ava, I'm sorry. Truly. Thank you for showing me grace when you didn't have to." Ava took a breath and shook her hand. Her instincts told her to keep distance, but she saw sincerity in Madison's eyes. "Thank you for the apology," she said. "It meant a lot." Madison hesitated. "Your work, it's inspiring. I know I can't make up for what I did, but I want to help. Is there a way for me to support your research or your community efforts?" Ava considered. She could have refused, but she sensed this was genuine. "We're working on a project to provide pro bono legal assistance to tenants facing eviction," she said. "We need funding and volunteers." Madison's expression brightened. "Send me the details. I'll help any way I can." They talked for a few more minutes before parting ways. Walking back to her table where Mr. Dean and Lily waited, Ava felt a sense of closure. The girl who'd been humiliated was now standing tall among leaders and advocates. She realized that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant acknowledging pain but choosing to build something better. Spring arrived, and with it came graduation for Mr. Dean's first class of scholarship recipients. Ava stood among her classmates on the dais, her mortarboard tassel swinging back and forth. As the dean called her name, she walked across the stage to receive her diploma, Bachelor of Arts in Sociology, with honors. The crowd erupted in cheers. Her mother cried. Kyle jumped up and down, and Mr. Dean beamed from his seat. It was the culmination of years of hard work, sacrifice, and unexpected kindness. After the ceremony, a small gathering was held in a nearby garden. Mr. Dean introduced Ava to a representative from a national nonprofit working on housing justice. They discussed a fellowship opportunity that would allow her to work full-time on tenant rights. Tears of joy filled her eyes as she shook hands with the representative. The journey that began with mud-stained clothes had led to this moment, a future filled with purpose and hope. Around the same time, Madison's efforts to clean up her family's company yielded progress. The environmental remediation across Southside neighborhoods began ahead of schedule. Devereaux Family Holdings set aside millions for community development. healthcare clinics, and educational scholarships for underserved youth. Local news outlets cautiously praised the initiative. Madison worked tirelessly behind the scenes, avoiding the spotlight but driving change, partnering with community leaders, attending town hall meetings, and even volunteering at a local shelter. Over time, people began to see her not as the privileged socialite but as someone committed to making amends and creating opportunities. One sunny afternoon, Ava returned to the cafe where she used to work, now dressed in business casual attire. She was dropping off a check from the Dean Foundation to cover food vouchers for homeless clients at the women's shelter. When she entered, the manager, Rosa, greeted her with a hug. "You look amazing," Rosa said, beaming. Ava laughed. "I feel amazing." Behind the counter, a new barista called out, "Ava, is that you?" Ava turned to see Lily, her friend from campus. Now Lily worked part-time at the cafe while pursuing her nonprofit management degree. They hugged. "Look at you," Lily said. "From cleaning tables to presenting at town halls to graduating. You're unstoppable." Ava shrugged. "I have a good support system, and people believed in me." Ava left the cafe and walked toward the CTA station. Snow was melting on the sidewalks and robin's eggs dotted tree branches. As she crossed the street, she nearly collided with a sleek black SUV. For a moment, her pulse quickened. It was Madison's car. Madison stepped out and called her name. Ava paused, then walked over. Madison held out her phone. "I arranged for a fund to support your research on housing. It's through the trust my family set up. They're matching donations up to $50,000. Ava stared. "That's incredible." Madison nodded. "I want to help you turn all this hard work into real change. It's the least I can do." Ava felt tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for believing in me." They stood on the bustling sidewalk, two women from different worlds, both changed by a single moment. The traffic, lights changed, and they walked side by side toward the train station, talking about plans for fundraisers, community events, and ways to involve more people. For both of them, life would never be the same. Years later, Ava became the executive director of a nonprofit organization dedicated to housing justice in Chicago. Lily joined her as COO. Together, they lobbied for statewide legislation to prevent unjust evictions and increase affordable housing. They spoke at conferences nationwide, using Ava's story as an example of how one person can change their destiny and how others can help unlock that potential. Madison served on the board of their nonprofit, using her media savvy and connections to raise awareness and funds. She still wore designer clothes, but her focus was not on fashion anymore. She spent weekends volunteering and evenings in meetings with community leaders. She often remembered that muddy morning as the moment that shattered her sense of invincibility and taught her empathy. Once, during a gala celebrating the nonprofit's anniversary, a speaker asked Ava to reflect on the journey from that day she was splashed with mud to the launch of the foundation partnership with Madison. She said, "Sometimes life throws mud at you, literally or figuratively. You can let it define you, or you can use it as fuel to rise higher. I chose to rise." The audience rose to their feet. Madison sat in the front row, tears in her eyes, proud of the woman Ava had become. On a warm June evening, Ava returned to the alley where she had picked up her mop after the mud incident. Everything looked the same. Brick walls, a stray cat slinking by, a faint smell of garbage and rain. She knelt down and ran her hand over the concrete, remembering the heaviness she'd felt when everyday life felt impossible. She stood, brushing away a few specks of dust, and smiled. The alley would always be part of her story, but it no longer held her back. She had built a life of purpose, compassion, and change. Madison drove past that same alley and noticed Ava standing there, gazing at the spot where mud had once stained her uniform. She stopped the car and rolled down her window. "Hey," she called softly. Ava turned, eyes widening in surprise. She smiled. "Hey." Madison stepped out. The sun cast a golden glow over them. I just wanted to say thanks for everything. You taught me what it means to be truly human. She offered her hand. Ava took it and shook it firmly. They stood together in silence, two women whose lives had intersected in an unexpected, muddy moment now united in a shared mission to help others. The city around them buzzed on, cars honking, people rushing, the hum of urban life. But in that moment, time seemed to pause. A few blocks away, Mr. Dean, now in his late 70s, watched from his office window as the two women spoke. He whispered to himself, "They're doing it, they're changing the world." He picked up the phone and called his assistant. "Prepare for next year's scholarship applications. We'll need more stories like theirs." And so it went. The ripple effect of one act of injustice transformed by empathy, courage, and determination. A cleaner girl who refused to be broken, a wealthy socialite who discovered compassion, and a philanthropist who recognized potential when he saw it. Together, they built bridges across Chicago's divides, proving that a single moment could spark a movement and that from mud and hardship, greatness could emerge. The end.